Welcome to Hollywood Stuntmakers. On this edition, movie Pyrotechnics and Hollywood's Masters of Disaster. You'll learn how the pyro effects in Backdraft revolutionized the way fire is used in film. We'll find out how stuntmen become human torches. And effects expert Joe Lombardi will reveal how he engineered the famous napalm blast in Apocalypse Now. We'll find out how the stunts in classic films like Earthquake and The Poseidon Adventure were achieved. Then we'll find out how special effects can make unthinkable disasters come to life on the screen. All this and more on Hollywood Stuntmakers. Fire. It's nature's most unpredictable element. Fires and explosions have been a staple of Hollywood ever since the early days of film. But since then, visual effects technicians have employed pyrotechnics in increasingly dramatic and realistic ways. That's a real inferno you're looking at in this scene from Backdraft. The challenge for filmmakers is to make fire appear dangerous while maintaining safety on the set. Ron Howard's Backdraft employed the most extensive use of fire in any Hollywood film to date. By studying videotapes of real firefighters confronting actual fires, effect supervisors Alan Hall, Mikhail Solomon, Clay Pinney, and Scott Farrar pushed pyrotechnology further than it had ever gone before. Here's the director of Backdraft, Ron Howard.
I do feel it was a very dangerous movie to make. We knew that. We talked about it. We tried to cover our risks, but fire is a very unpredictable thing. Really, more than any movie I've ever been around, I lost sleep over this thing. I was very concerned and more than relieved when we finally wrapped. Now, at the same time, we knew that in making a movie for 1991, that we had to offer something unusual and just sort of a slice of life. You know, what's it like to be a firefighter? That isn't quite enough. So we knew that the real cinematic challenge, the movie-making challenge here, was to try to show you what it's like inside a fire. And it's extraordinary. And the firefighters who've seen it so far tell us that, you know, far and away, it's the closest to making them feel like that, you know, they were there. It was an amazing challenge, and the things that the actors were doing in terms of putting themselves into close proximity with fire were things that I really couldn't ask them to do. They worked creatively and ambitiously towards trying to, again, realistically give the audience some sense of what these guys do in crunch time.
Clay Pinney was nominated for an Academy Award for his pyrotechnical work on Backdraft.
During Backdraft, we developed several different types of flame delivery system, as well as some of the standards that have been used forever. One of the things we did, we ended up plasma cutting pipe, which gives you a very thin line, so it gives you a sheet of flame rather than the slotted pipe type of fire that you normally see. I think where we changed more than anywhere else was our fuel delivery systems and some of the types of fuel. To be totally realistic would have been so much smoke that you wouldn't have been able to see anything. So we used a combination of diesel fuel, mole smoke, some other things that we would put in, so you got the haze, but you could still see through the scene to what you needed.
The heat from movie fires is so intense that special camera housing has been designed to ensure that the cameras don't experience a meltdown. Mikhail Solomon was the cinematographer on Backdraft.
When we started preparing Backdraft, my original thoughts was, this is going to be really hot. I want to see the cameras right in the middle of the fire. What are we going to do? we have to protect the cameras one way or another. So we developed 2 camera housings, or rather they did it, and they used the same kind of tiles that's used on the space shuttle, which are ceramic tiles that they lined the inside of the camera housings. In a way that became a bit of an embarrassment because what happened was we hardly ever used them because we realized that we would get much better shots by going in ourselves and hand-holding the cameras and going through the fire with Steadicams. And the only time we used them was when we said, oh, what the hell, let's put the camera right in the middle of it. And in one instance, we had like 5 cameras going, and I wanted to put a camera where the other cameras would pick it up. So what we did was we put the fire housing with the camera in the middle of the action, poured glue all over it, and set it afire. So all you see is a fireball, but it's actually a camera sitting in there shooting another part of the scene.
Many of the effects in Backdraft were so difficult to execute that special sets had to be built. Here's Clay Pinney to tell us about it.
In the rooftop sequence in Backdraft, where we have the collapsing section, that was done in both miniature by ILM and full scale by us. We built it on top of the Delaware and Hudson Railroad bridge that the tracks have been taken out. And it was about 25 feet in the air on scaffolding. Joe Montenegro rigged large rams underneath, had 4 giant sections that would collapse. Stunt guy would be running. As soon as he hit that first section, they would start dropping. And that was probably one of the scarier stunts because if he had lost his footing at that point, he would have gone over literally right down on top of the burners.
For Backdraft, large-scale models were built and then burned to give exterior scenes the look the filmmakers wanted without destroying real buildings. This scene combines live action with the use of a scale model and a matte painting. Here's Industrial Light and Magic's matte painter Mark Sullivan to tell us about his work on Backdraft.
The main reason that we're using matte paintings is because we're integrating the paintings into a live action surrounding. The painting medium offers a tremendous amount of control and precision in blending a synthetic image with a real image. What really makes this shot exciting for me was from a dramatic standpoint. It's coming at a really exciting point in the movie. It's the climax of the movie. It's a big payoff shot.
Movie explosions are designed in many different ways, but the filmmaker's objective is always the same: to create excitement. In fact, some stuntmen go so far as to set themselves on fire. We'll meet Hollywood's human torches when we return. Stuntmen are often called on to perform the seemingly impossible. Some are even willing to light themselves on fire. These dedicated pros are known as human torches. In this scene from Apocalypse Now, legendary stuntman Terry Leonard is engulfed in flames as he escapes from a burning helicopter. This never-before-seen footage of the making of Apocalypse Now provides a rare glimpse into the planning and execution of this famous stunt. Shot in 1976 in the Philippines, the Francis Ford Coppola picture had many logistical production difficulties, including this complicated, fiery stunt. Terry Leonard.
So we had 3 guys in full fire suits, myself, Steve Boyum, and Joe Finnegan. Kerry Russell gets blown out as a door gunner. He gets blown 20 feet out. And the helicopter, all in one shot, crashes to the ground. And that, to me, was really a great moment in that film.
For that moment to succeed, the stunt coordinators first had to prepare and test the fire suits. Here's Terry Leonard back in 1976 to explain.
This is a new suit made out of Kynol and needled Nomex and aluminized beta glass to allow a man to withstand intense fire temperatures for at least a minute in case if there's a...
But if you're on fire for at least a minute, you also have to breathe. So before any tests on the fire suit were performed, a special regulating system was built to allow the stuntmen to breathe easily.
So this whole system has been designed to be streamlined so that it'll look much more like a man and you can shoot a closer film and not give yourself away. So that's why all these little bottles and specially designed breathing units, and we've done a lot of research on this and a lot of time and a lot of development's been put on it, but this is the final test. This is to find out if it'll work or not.
Heavy-duty asbestos clothing is worn over the fire suit, along with an insulated fiberglass headpiece. Flammable rubber cement is then applied liberally to Leonard's back, and the test is underway. Since the headpiece on Leonard's fire suit prohibits him from talking easily, communication with the support team must be done by predetermined hand signals. Leonard's okay, but he felt the heat more than he'd anticipated.
How long was that? About 30 seconds. Okay, we got to do a little redesigning.
Some design changes are made, and a second test of the Human Torch is performed the next day. Leonard discovers that the fire suit is still more flammable than it should be. Here, Leonard is frantically signaling to pyrotechnician Joe Lombardi to extinguish his still burning fire suit. After this close call, Leonard will make more modifications to the suit. Leonard and the pyrotechnical crew then decide to go ahead with the stunt as planned. Pyrotechnician Joe Lombardi not only assisted with the fire suit testing, he also coordinated the other important effect in the scene, the helicopter explosion. Joe Lombardi.
One of the toughest thing I did was blowing up the helicopter on Apocalypse with 4 people in it. This was a very heavy shot because we built a full-scale helicopter.
Lombardi rigged this life-size model with 3 explosive charges. The first detonation is intended to throw stuntman Gary Russell 20 feet, and at the same time collapse the platform on which the helicopter stands. The second and third explosions will ignite the helicopter's interior and also light the other 3 stuntmen on fire. Here's Francis Ford Coppola directing the stunt crew as to how they should act once they've escaped from the burning helicopter.
My feeling is that you've got this incredible wound in the stomach from the explosion. Maybe it tore part of you away, so you're less conscious of the fire. You're just on fire as well, and you're like a man in shock. You're very conscious, so you're trying to get out. You're dead, and your thing is to try to get to him to see how he is.
Since it will be all but impossible to direct the stuntmen during the actual shooting, Coppola requests a final walkthrough to make sure the choreography in the sequence is correct. Coppola, after conferring with Leonard, feels comfortable with the rehearsals, and final preparation for the stunt gets underway. Terry Leonard was asked how he copes with the pressure of performing such a dangerous stunt.
90% of most stunts that you do, you feel an anxiety because the thing we're getting paid for is to create a visual effect. This shot here represents a tremendous amount of money. So you feel a tremendous anxiety because you want the shot to look spectacular, and you want it to look good, and you want it to go right. Compounded with that feeling of anxiety is the extreme danger of this shot physically. You try to eliminate the risk element as much as possible because, again, you're not getting paid to hit the ground hard. It just so happens that maybe sometimes you will hit it hard in trying to give the screen that visual effect.
Thank you very much. Get ready to shoot.
Stuntmen Terry Leonard, Steve Boyum, Joe Finnegan, and Kerry Russell enter the helicopter, and the cameras start to roll. Russell escapes cleanly according to plan and lands safely on specially prepared foam tile. Leonard and the other 2 men emerge in flames from the burning helicopter. Despite the dangers involved in this stunt, no one was hurt. And here's what the sequence looked like as it finally appeared in the film Apocalypse Now. Stuntmen have to rely on their skills and an experienced pyrotechnical crew so that they can safely become human torches. When we return, more movie pyrotechnics. The movie blast can be big box office, so Hollywood takes blowing things up very seriously. And a large explosion takes weeks of planning, preparation, and the proper equipment.
I don't think he's gonna apologize.
Nah, I don't think so.
This tanker explosion from Thelma and Louise took weeks of preparation to pull off. Pyrotechnicians had to rig the tanker so it would detonate on cue. The final explosion resulted in a fireball that shot 150 feet into the air. Early movie explosions were a far cry from the dramatic detonations of today. In fact, they weren't really explosions at all. For this scene in The Great Train Robbery, director Edwin Porter used a few mild-mannered puffs of smoke to simulate an explosion. Though these effects look tame by today's standards, they gave silent film audiences their first tastes of movie pyrotechnics. Some movie explosions are so enormous that there's only one way to pull them off, with miniatures. In Die Hard, a helicopter explodes and sets the Fox Tower on fire. Here's Richard Edlund to tell us how this effect was achieved.
Basically, we had a 300 frame a second camera shooting up at the side of a building that was built in the same scale as the helicopter, which was about maybe 5 feet long, the helicopter. You hear the camera rolling, and at 300 frames a second, this thing really makes a lot of noise. I mean, it's yanking yards of film through a second. And the camera is rolling, and all of a sudden this thing goes pop. It takes no time at all because it's a little miniature with an explosion in it, and it looks silly when you look at the video of it. But when you see it's slowed down to 1/12 its speed, then it looks like a shot.
The napalm blast in Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now is a spectacular example of movie pyrotechnics. A series of blasts had to be perfectly timed with planes flying overhead to create the illusion that napalm was being dropped. This explosion required perfect timing and the expertise of effects master Joe Lombardi.
And I told Francis, I said, I'm going to do a napalm maybe about 600-700 feet long, and he kind of looked at me and says, well, okay, you know. He says, is it going to work? I said, well, yeah, I think it's going to work. So anyway, what happened, we had to dig a trench 600 feet long over there, and we lined it up, and we had pipes in there, and we had gasoline to pour in the thing there to set it off. And meanwhile, what had happened is he decides to tie it in with the jets. And what we did on the ground, we made big arrows, you know, for about a mile and 3/4 mile. This is where the strike has got to go. This is which direction you got to go. This is how high you have to be. And what happened at the time, when they made one pass, they were nowhere near the thing, so I couldn't really set it off. I was setting about maybe 100 feet from the actual blow, and Francis and the camera crew were almost a 1/4 mile away. And the biggest thing I was worried about is the heat from this gasoline, because we must have used about 1,200 gallons of gasoline in this shot.
Smell that? You smell that? Napalm, son. Nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory.
The pyrotechnics used in the movie Backdraft are also employed in Universal Studios' Backdraft attraction. Here's Universal Studios special effects designer Nick Drobness to explain.
I was in a movie theater watching another film, and they had the typical trailers, and I saw it, and the first thing I thought was, gee, that's terrific. That would be an absolute fabulous attraction.
Drobness and his effects experts worked for well over a year on the Backdraft attraction.
This will be the largest amount of fire ever put inside of a building on a regular basis. We try to get right on that edge where people really feel like they're in peril when they're in the attraction, but at the same time they're laughing because they know they're perfectly safe.
The temperature inside the backdraft attraction reaches 2,000 degrees. A 56-foot-long invisible curtain of air buffers the audience from the intense heat. Unlike a real fire, however, the attraction burns down and resets 200 times a day.
It's been said that if disasters didn't occur naturally, the movies would have to make them happen. We're at the earthquake attraction at Universal Studios in Hollywood, where disasters happen every day. It takes the talents of Hollywood's greatest filmmakers to bring disaster to life on the big screen, allowing you to get a real taste of danger in the safety of your local theater.
For Terminator 2, director James Cameron created the ultimate disaster, a nuclear holocaust in which the entire city of Los Angeles is destroyed. In order to create a nuclear disaster, Cameron called on the special effects artists at Forward Productions. Vast cityscapes were built in tremendous detail for the sole purpose of destroying them. Giant air blowers were used to blow apart the specially constructed miniature buildings, cars, and freeways. Director Cameron wanted to see bodies literally incinerated on screen from the nuclear blast. This presented a considerable challenge to visual effects artist Stan Winston.
When we had to create ashen bodies that were going to be blown away by a nuclear holocaust, it was very unsettling. And it was the one time when you got a little uncomfortable because it wasn't pleasant to look at while you were shooting it. But it is the important aspect of the film.
Winston's crew designed and created several duplicates of Linda Hamilton, all of which were destroyed in the creation of the haunting nuclear sequence. The final result is a chilling vision of nuclear apocalypse. Special effects pros not only recreate man-made disasters, they're also capable of reproducing natural disasters. Director Irwin Allen is widely acknowledged as the king of disaster movies. In this scene from the 1972 Irwin Allen film The Poseidon Adventure, a 90-foot tidal wave overturns a luxury liner. For the exterior shots of the Poseidon, special effects technicians built a scale model of the ship and then photographed it in a water tank which simulated a turbulent ocean. The Grand Salon set you see here was constructed so that separate sections could be tilted up to 30 degrees. Stuntmen and women hung from the inverted tables and dropped to the fiery depths below. Phil Adams was one of the stuntmen on the Poseidon Adventure.
The Poseidon Adventure was a very, very demanding film. They had an actual ship that they could hinge, which means turn it up on its hindside and turn it upside down, and we'd work in a position from hanging. And this was done in a way that it gave everybody the feeling, and particularly the audience, that they wanted was to have a hanging on for dear life. And of course you would. Naturally, if something was to turn on you, you would try to hang, not to fall, because it happened in such a quick time lapse that everybody was left sliding or hanging. Working with the effects people on the Poseidon Adventure, we had tables and chairs and areas where bodies would be flung into. And they all had to be prepared in such a manner that you could get away from them so that they wouldn't break your bones. We'd put in objects such as break styrofoam and break away things that would break at the level of your body hitting it.
Like the Poseidon adventure, the 1986 film Solar Babies featured water as a catalyst for disaster. In this film, a dam breaks, unleashing a huge torrent of water. This one effect took weeks of preparation. A scale model of the dam was created, and water was actually pumped through the dam to make it break. Here's Boss Films' Richard Edlund to explain.
Basically, water is one of the most difficult things that you can try to manipulate because it telegraphs its size. If you see a droplet in the foreground, you know how far away you are from it. And no matter if you shoot it at high speed or not, it doesn't work. So you use little things like foam and alcohol sometimes. It makes smaller droplets. To try to trick the audience into thinking that the water is bigger than it is.
We'll be back with more Masters of Disaster. Disaster movies demand attention to detail in every aspect of production. The objective is to make the action look realistic while maintaining a high degree of safety.
Visual effects artists not only create fictional disasters, they're also called on to recreate historic disasters as well. Director Mark Robson's 1974 film Earthquake features more stunts than any other disaster film. Over 140 stuntmen were used in Earthquake, a Hollywood record at the time. Scenes like this one required precise timing and meticulous preparation to ensure that no one was hurt. In order to create the illusion of a violent earthquake, technicians literally shook the sets as the cameras rolled. This made it difficult for both actors and stuntmen, who had to perform while maintaining their balance on a swaying set. In order to create the illusion of a crumbling Los Angeles, miniature buildings were used in conjunction with Albert Whitlock's Academy Award-winning matte paintings. The result is a terrifying vision of destruction. Stuntmen had to contend with falling debris which was dropped from high above the sets. The skill and timing of the stuntmen prevented the scene from becoming a real disaster. Stuntman Roy Clark worked on Earthquake.
Our involvement in Earthquake was inside the building and falling either over, on, down, that type of thing. There again, you get into special effects because if the effects you saw, and you did remarkable. I mean, you really felt like you were in an earthquake. The nice thing about it, of course, is this fantasy land that we live in is, you know, after I fall and hit the ground, then everybody says, cut, you can get up and everything's quiet. It's like, you know, well, we can do that again. So those are just, you know, those wonderful things that we do that way. By designating to both the men and women who were involved in this, who was going to fall, who was going to go over, was all done by the stunt coordinator to the individual people, or who was going to be, quote, the catcher. You got to remember sometimes when you're 35 years old and you weigh about 200 pounds, you become a good catcher. So they might put somebody up there that you'd be responsible for, knowing full well that you were kind of responsible in a way if you happen to be one of those people for 2 or 3 people coming down at you.
Here's WonderWorks Incorporated model designer Brick Price to explain how miniature buildings are designed for disaster films.
Buildings in disaster sequences are fun because there we have to build them so that they look absolutely realistic on the camera. They have to be able to fool a person. And then the moment that they blow up, of course, they have to look real and they have to come apart real. We have a technique that we call Wonder Vision, which is kind of a 90s version of foreground miniature photography. And we can take a model of a building, or even a portion of a building, and integrate it into a scene where it's with other live buildings in such a way that you can create explosions and buildings collapsing without having to cut away to some other piece of action. So it creates some very convincing shots.
Now let's watch this scene from Earthquake, and remember, everything that you see on screen is a miniature, carefully constructed to appear like the real thing. There are times in a disaster film when a stunt can become all too close to the real thing. Jim Nickerson performed one such stunt for Earthquake.
When I worked on Earthquake, I was to play a young archaeologist, and we were down in these tunnels looking for artifacts or something. Then all of a sudden the earthquake was supposed to come and bury us. Well, what was supposed to happen was that we had air bottles we were supposed to go to once these caterpillars had pushed all this dirt over us with peat moss. They tried to lighten up the load on the dirt instead of just straight dirt. Well, we were down 8 feet, and all this stuff comes down, and they had a camera down there, unmanned, without an operator on it, and they saw the dirt come all over us. Well, we got locked in down there, and I couldn't get to my air bottle. And I got to tell you, it was a simple shot, and it looked simple, and I've done pretty big stunts in my lifetime, but it was kind of scary because you had all that weight, and if you tried to move, it took a lot of it took a lot of energy out of you. So you just had to relax, and it took about 8 to 10 minutes, and I had no air. But I built myself a little pocket because I had my hand up here, and I did like this, and I had a little air, and I was just breathing normally and just tried to stay cool. And all of a sudden, I felt a hand on my head, and they had gotten to us. But they had a pretty big spot. They didn't know where the heck we were. So it was a little scary for a little bit, but I was 22 years old. I didn't care, and as well as good. Today I'd have probably had a stroke sitting down there with all that stuff.
Jim Nickerson also worked on the 1975 disaster film The Hindenburg, in which a dirigible exploded and burned to the ground. In order to accurately recreate this famous historical event, special effects technicians created a replica of the Hindenburg on a soundstage at Universal Studios.
The Hindenburg became a team situation of 15 of us, where they built the nose cone of the Hindenburg on stage 12 at Universal, and it was to exact same size. And what we were to do, all of us were at certain points of the nose cone. The special effects men were to blow up the nose cone, and when they burned the nose cone up, that fire would put us on fire, and then we would leave out of the nose cone of the Hindenburg and down into the cardboard boxes that we'd built. We were prepared in our fire suits, and the moment of truth came, and the fire came, and we all caught on fire, and I saw Mike leave, and I saw had numbers leave to go, and as best as we could see, because there was so much things going with smoke and fire, and I left out of there and off all on fire, and I had a good landing down there, and then, the Los Angeles Fire Department, the two fellas that were assigned to me were Johnny on the spot, just like they were to every other stuntman that was there, and got me out of there in a safe situation. And it was one hell of a shot to try and recreate that kind of disastric history. That's actually the most difficult thing to do, probably in film.
Next up, disaster special effects.
San Francisco was one of the first films to depict a large-scale disaster. Clark Gable starred in this recreation of the famous 1906 San Francisco earthquake. Like the 1974 Universal release Earthquake, the sets for San Francisco were constructed on platforms that were rocked as the cameras rolled. This ensured that the breakaway sets would crumble on cue. Veteran stuntman Gil Perkins worked on San Francisco.
We did some stuff where you were fall, buildings were falling, the building would fall and they'd just miss you and you just get out of the way of it, or else they'd have phony rocks, the kind of cardboard rocks they have on paper, and all those would come down and bury you. We did a lot of that.
For many disaster movies, falling debris is a necessity.
Special effects technicians have devised ways of creating debris that looks dangerously realistic, but is actually harmless.
Here at Independent Studio Services, fake bricks and rocks are manufactured. These lightweight fake props can fall on actors and stuntmen without causing harm. A two-part silicone solution is used. This solution is mixed and poured into a retention mold. The two halves of the mold are then clamped together. The solution expands into the mold in a matter of seconds. Once the solution is expanded and hardened, the product is removed. The brick is then trimmed and painted to pass for the real thing.
We're here at Universal Studios in Hollywood to take a behind-the-scenes look at the inner workings of this earthquake attraction.
Here's Universal Studios' Al Underwood.
What we're trying to do is create and engulf our guests in the 6 basic fears that all humans think of when they think of disaster. Fire, fear of drowning, the fear of electricity, the fear of being enclosed in small spaces, the fear of dark, and also the fear of falling. So all this is combined into one attraction. Now this is something that we wanted to do at the time the movie Earthquake was released. But at the time, technology did not exist that would allow us to do that. Now this is 15 years later, but I think the effect that we have now is done very, very well. Earthquake, the big one, was about 4.5 years in the designing and planning. And it took over a year to actually build at a cost of over $14 million. And it begins in 3 main forms. We have 3 mainframe computers that are watching every aspect of it. One to control all the attractions, another one to control all the sound effects, another one to control the tram and the gimbal that it's on itself. And once the tram starts shaking and you feel the earthquake, 11,000-pound concrete slab of ceiling actually caves in on the street set above. And an entire 25-foot runaway truck crashes and explodes right next to the tram. After the explosion, 60,000 gallons of water flood the entire attraction, creating a 15-foot high wall surrounding the entire guests as they go through. The sidewalks around the tram and throughout the entire subway set are designed the same way, much the same way, that the concrete sidewalks were designed in the movie Earthquake, with hydraulic pumps and pistons underneath to actually pull apart the concrete floors and push them up as though the earth was actually buckling underneath the city. When Earthquake hits and becomes complete, not only do you have a tram shaking, not only do you have 32,000 watts of sense-around power, but you also have electricity, transformers exploding, you have 6-foot-high arcs of electricity, fire erupting all around you from not only the propane truck, but the ground will actually catch fire around the attraction. And all of those cues, all of the explosions are set up by the mainframe computer at a time when it's safe. And all of the flames, in fact, are propane flames. And propane is what is used in most motion pictures, and it was also used extensively in Universal's Backdraft. In order to have earthquake, fire, water, and electric transformers bouncing around, all of this is filtered through the 3-stage computer system that we have. And one will not work unless the other is in check. And if any of the elements are not satisfied, they're completing their circuits properly, nothing else will work. It's only when each phase of the earthquake is complete does the next phase go on. This transplant earthquake, they experience an actual 8.3 earthquake that takes about 2.5 minutes to experience. Once the attraction is over, in less than 45 seconds, the entire attraction will reset and is ready to bring another load of guests into the attraction. And they can do this up to 200 times a day, exactly the same way every time. It is one of the most sophisticated illusions anywhere inside of any soundstage.
Well, that's a wrap. We'll see you next time on Hollywood Stuntmakers.